If you haven't had a chance to take our poll, please take a quick glance through there and give us your answers. We'll go ahead and show the results here in just a second and we'll get started. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. That we are also streaming on YouTube, so whichever works best for you. It looks like we still have a lot of room in the webinar. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Here are the results of our poll. We know a lot of you have helped us with our surveys that are out there, but we just wanted to show just a quick glance of what everyone's feeling today. We all know that COVID has made some of us feel one way one day and different another day. And so just as we sit and look at what's ahead of us, it looks like 73% of us are feeling that their students could benefit from summer. So we're excited to plan that and talk about that tonight as well. And then as we look about just getting back on campus, feeling comfortable, having some fun activities, not all summer long, but maybe 3, 4, 5 activities planned throughout the summer. We see that. So we're really excited about that. And then here, as we look to see where everybody sort of sits, we know that it's a hard decision to decide, looking to the future of what everybody is committed to as of right now. So we just wanted to share that with you. And we'll go ahead and close that out and we will start the evening. I'd like to introduce to you our superintendent of schools here in Temple City Unified School District, Dr. Kim Fricker.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah-Getty, and thank you to everyone who has put this webinar together for our families this evening. I know a lot of work goes into this, so I just want to acknowledge all of you and all of the planning that went into tonight's seminar. So thank you very much. Just to get started, I just want to go around and have the panel members introduce themselves so that we can acclimate with who the panel members are, and then what area of the district that they will be speaking from or representing this evening. So thank you to my introduction. I am Dr. Fricker and the superintendent of schools, and I'm going to pass it over to Hannah-Getty.
Good evening, everyone. I am Hannah-Getty. I'm serving right now as the interim assistant superintendent for our personnel services. So I'm helping with all of our staffing as we look for now and ahead, and then also overseeing our student services and education technology services.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mercedes Gomez. I am the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I am also supporting as the interim CBO for the time being. Thank you.
Good evening, families. My name is Tamar Kataroyan, and I'm the Executive Director of Special Education. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kerry Smith, and I'm the Coordinator for Student Data and Integrated Technology.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Gerling, and I am the elementary TOSA. I support teachers, students, and staff with our students' elementary curriculum.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Sherman. I am the secondary TOSA.
Good evening, parents. My name is Amber Wang, and I am the District Outreach Liaison. 各位家长晚上好，我是咱们学区的家校合作和扩展教育的联系人 Amber Wang。您有任何问题可以输入中文，我们来回答您。另外本期的今天晚上的会议，在明天可以有中文和 Spanish 西班牙文的版本在学区的网站上公布。谢谢。
Buenas tardes a todos y gracias por acompañarnos. Les avisamos que mandaremos la grabación de esta junta dentro de unos días y estará traducida. Y si tienen preguntas durante la junta, por favor, pónganlas en la caja de la Q y la A. Gracias.
Thank you to all of our panelists who are joining me this evening and starting this webinar. Just to kick things off, I just want to welcome everybody to the webinar, and as questions come in, we will do our very best to answer them. In some cases, we are going to need information or additional input from our staff and our parent communities to make sure that we make what we put forth the plans for summer and for the next school year, which will be here before we know it. But in looking into where we are now, I think that we all agree that the pandemic has had its ups and downs and obstacles that we have had to traverse as a district. And so I do think that our central focus has always been students, and we've kept the best interests of our students at heart through every single position all year long, and it has been a very, very long journey. I do want to thank my team with special thanks to Dr. Getty and Dr. Gomez, who have been introduced tonight. They truly have held the lion's share of work in the planning and the programming. They do have very supportive teams behind them, and I want to thank them as well, as this was no short effort. But looking into how we got here to this webinar and then where we want to go, if you remember way back in January, we did have a transition. We were in pretty high levels of COVID, and we wanted to make sure that we were very protective of our students and our staff. At that time, it was very clear that things were on the rise. And as those things started to depreciate, that was really when it was beginning to open up and beginning to be safe for students to come onto campus and our staff to return to campus. So making sure that we had all of the preparatory information, all of the personal protective gear in place, all of the facility changes in place prior to welcoming students and staff on was our first priority. And then when we went to reopening, of course, we wanted to make sure that our staff had access to vaccines, not just the first vaccine, but actually they could be double vaccinated prior to coming on campus. That was a big endeavor for us, and we wanted to make sure that our staff was protected and safe, and that our students who were going to come on campus were also protected and safe as well. We also saw a shift in March going from that purple tier to the red tier, and now in April becoming in orange. So we do see that this decline is progressing, and we are working our way out of the pandemic and into a more open society. There still are restrictions that are put in place by the Department of Public Health, so we just want to be mindful of those, and we pay close attention to all of the guidelines coming out of the CDE and the Department of Public Health that guide our planning and our process each step of the way, so we pay great attention to that. We did have a question answer session prior to the opening to make sure that all parents could get slotted into a program that best fit their needs. We did provide multiple different avenues for families to access digital curriculum in person, and then if they needed ELP services. So we wanted to make sure that we tried to attend to a variety of our parents' needs out there in our community. And then moving into April, holding this town hall meeting just to include input from parents and questions from parents that will guide and lead our decision-making process and our planning as we move into the summer. We know that summer is really important for remediation and also for learning loss mitigation. And then we also want to plan towards the opening of school for the next school year. So a lot of things will be put in place over the next couple months, but definitely our staff and our families will be right along with us and helping us put those pictures together. And tonight begins that process. So I want to turn it over to the next presenter.
All right, and that would be me. In regards to our protective measures that we have shared quite a few times, I want to go over some of the things that we've implemented in our schools. One of them being the PPE equipment, from face masks to face shields to gowns to gloves to wipes. We have hand sanitizers installed. We have plexiglass dividers in our classrooms and across our sites to make sure that there is that protective measure, additional protective measure on our sites. We also have temperature checks and health screeners that we're implementing before all students enter our campus We have several spots that we're doing these in, and every single time that a student walks in and a staff member walks in, a health screener has to be taken as well as their temperature check. We have purifiers that we've installed all across our sites, and these are proven to kill 99% of COVID that's in the air, as well as other viruses. And we have also updated and modified our HVAC systems across all of our sites. So these are all in accordance to the Department of Health and the guidance that we are getting. So these are the safety measures that we have put in all across our sites. And on to the next one.
Great. So as you know, we have a survey out there right now and it hasn't closed yet. So we will push it back out tomorrow in case you didn't get a chance to give us some feedback. But we are looking for input regarding both summer and fall as we start to plan. So as you look here, it looks like we have almost just about 2,000 families that have responded. And so you can sort of get a measure in looking at that and looking at this where we are with summer, right? We only have about 160 that do not want to come onto have summer school at all in that each grade level, the TK through 6 and the 7 through 12. And then as we're sort of looking where we stand with in-person summer and distance or blending, we want to continue what we've been offering and trying to accommodate our families as best as possible. So what we're looking to do is have an in-person session for those that want that in-person session. And then when possible, be able to create a distance learning session. They may have like a one-day hybrid appointment type base with the teacher, something so they still get some of that transitional in-person time if possible. But for those families that really can't have the student on campus, we want to be able to offer as much support and as we can. We're looking at different models and different ideas. So that's what tonight is about as well.
Sorry, I wasn't muted. Okay, so of the parents who completed the survey and responded that they were interested and willing to send their students to summer school, there were 3 main areas that came up as areas of focus. So these included foundational math skills, as you can see, reading literacy, and social emotional learning. As you can see, based on the percentages there, social emotional learning was ranked the highest with 87% as an area of concern, which isn't really surprising given the research of how students learn. So we know that in order for a student to be able to actively participate in their learning and synthesize any material that they're trying to process, they need to be in a safe place, both physically and mentally. So we recognize this has been a trying year for everyone, and we definitely want to make sure that we are supporting our students and our families. So as we get into what some of our summer options will be, this will be areas that we'll want to focus on.
So then as we look at our secondary schools, we have our intermediate school as we asked our families, where do we want to focus our energy with our OAT students? Is it our English language arts? Is our algebra readiness and social emotional learning? And then also just preparedness, being ready for middle school. So many of our middle schoolers really haven't had a lot of time on that campus. So this is sort of where we see our feedback. You can see just in looking at a lot of the numbers, where everybody is. Certainly our pre-algebra readiness is extremely important to everybody, as well as our English language arts. So we really want to focus our areas there and include that social emotional time within those classrooms, and then also create a system where we can help welcome students back onto campus and get acclimated as we start the fall year. And then for the high school, we're really looking at these are our transcripts, right? This is when we need to get ready for college and what is going to allow our students the most opportunities, right? We want them to leave us having every option available. And so in looking at that, many of our students really struggled with distance learning. And so they want to come back on campus and be able to retake some of these classes to improve their grade, to get a better grade from perhaps a failing grade, and be able to get that college acceptance, right? So that it works for their college admissions and applications. So we look to see where our students are, and you can see English and math will probably be our highest areas that we will focus on, but we do hope to be able to offer credit recovery classes in science and social studies, and then possibly even world language to see. We just have to look at what our options are and what our students need.
So as we begin to plan for summer, we are happy to share that we are considering options at all of our grade levels. For the vast majority of our students, we want to provide options for intervention intervention and learning loss recovery for grades 2 through 8. Currently, we are looking at focusing, as I mentioned in a previous slide, at focusing on reading, math, and our social emotional learning based on these current survey results. However, we are still planning and may explore adding additional content areas should the need arise and an interest arise as well.
And then as we look at our high school students, we're going to talk about what classes will be offered for credit recovery. We really want to make sure that we are getting our students on track. So when they start next year, we try to mitigate as much of the damage as we can from the pandemic and get those students ready, not only just to improve and get those credits that they may have missed, but also to feel ready in those classes for that next grade. So that's really a focus of ours. And like I said, we'll be offering as many subjects as we can staff and that as work for our students. And you'll notice that the sessions for the high school are going to go 1 week longer. And that's really just to get the instructional minutes in, because those are classes that go on a transcript and there are requirements for those. And these classes will be offered they'll be offered in person, and we are probably planning to be able to offer some of them in a distance learning setting as well, just based on the needs and wants of our families and then what we're able to staff.
So I know I mentioned in the previous slide that we are considering options for all grade levels, and you might have initially thought, well, it's starting at grade 2, but we do have plans for our younger students as well as some other key grade levels at Oak in the high school. So we recognize that for our TK, our kinder and our first graders, many may not have been on their campus or may have only attended for half of the year before COVID. So for our littles, we really wanted to afford a unique opportunity. We've coined this STEP, which is going to be our summer transition educational program. And so this 1 week program would afford our primary students the advantage of being on campus for 1 week with just their peers, just their teachers. And so this would allow them to get acclimated or get reacquainted with the campus before the school year begins. And it also provides teachers with additional time in establishing routines and building community. We're also in a unique situation at Oak. So this upcoming year, both grade levels will be new to the campus. So typically our 8th graders would help guide our incoming 7th graders. However, this upcoming year, that won't necessarily be possible. So because of that, we want to have 2 weeks for our 7th and 8th graders to get to know Oak and allow teachers and students to again foster that sense of community. So we are tentatively looking at having each grade there for 1 week. And likewise at Temple City High School, our 9th and 10th graders would also have a week each where they, each of those grades would come on campus. And so our 9th graders would be experiencing the campus for the first time, and our 10th graders, while they had an opportunity to be there, they didn't necessarily get to complete their freshman year, so they'd get some opportunities to explore the campus and get reacquainted with the campus.
So extended school year is specific to our special education students and for those that qualify through the IEP team. These are basically different services that it's based on the student's needs and not necessarily the eligibility or the category, although that does play a major factor in it. It's designed to maintain mastery of skills where regression due to the extended time off may occur. And it's not specific to this, but we use this time to make sure that they've gained those skills. So when we do start the school year, they are ready to start on the right page. This year, extended school year, which will be on the next slide, extended school year, we're going to offer some different options. So extended school year will start from June 14th through July 15th. Scott, if we can just go to the next. Yeah, there we go. Okay, June 14th to July 15th. The schedule will remain the same. So it's going to be Monday through Thursday. It's going to be 4 hours a day. But because we have July 5th as a holiday and we will be off, the first Friday, the first week that we begin, we will be on that week to complete our 20 days. So it's going to be 20 days of ESY, 4 hours each. This year, we are offering 2 options for our ESY. One of them will be a full in-person option. The second one will be a full distant learning option. And based on the student's IEP and what they qualify through the ESY option, SAI instruction will be included, as well as 50% of their services based on their offer of FAPE. However, I do want to note that for parents that choose the distant learning option and they want their specialized services to be in person, we will make that happen, and we are offering that option as well. So please note that if you want the SAI portion to be distant learning, but yet the related services such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, those services, if you would like those in person, we would be offering those as well in person. Students will be accessing the same curriculum as they do during the school year. We do also add additional supplemental resources for them to make sure to target the specific gaps that we're seeing through their IEP goals. And the intent to sign up, the Google form, it's very similar to the ones that we've sent in the previous years. Please look out for that. That will be going out next week. And again, those are only going out to students that have qualified through the IEP process. However, I do want to note for families that do not receive this intent, you do have the options that we've just talked about for your student to participate. However, in addition to the options that we've discussed, if there are any additional resources that you would like for us to provide, please contact me directly. I will put my email in the chat. My email is also listed on our district website. And I would be happy to go over your child's IEP, and we can go through the services and see how we can best service them. So thank you so much.
Great. So that's sort of where we are with summer. You can see sort of a transition, even in our data that we've collected. There are fewer parents during the summer more comfortable with that in person as they are for the fall. I think everybody's sort of crossing their fingers and hoping there isn't a surge, hoping that we are able to get more and more people vaccinated, that, you know, the 12 to 15 range might be able to start getting vaccinated. So I know that there's a lot of hope. We all are holding that hope to be able to get back to a normal fall as much as possible. So when you look at this data, you can sort of see what we're getting and what the percentages are of people that have voted. And keep in mind, we understand we haven't gotten, you know, the full campus voting yet. Like I said, overall, we had about 2,000 people respond to our survey. And so with that data, it just sort of gives you a good marker of where we are for in-person learning and distance for the fall. And then also, if you just sort of chunk it by grades, just looking at our TK through 6th, it's a really high percent of almost 81% of our families that really want to be back in person for those younger grades. And then our secondary, with those students maybe having a slight bit higher risk for COVID, it's a little bit lower. And so as we look at this data, it's telling us as much as we possibly can, and that's what we want to start with tonight. Let's go in person in the fall. Let's create an in-person environment. Let's get back to normal as much as possible. We all know the CDC has lowered the requirement from 6 feet to 3 feet. That makes it much easier for us to be able to have more students in the classroom. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're focusing on safety and not letting our guard down and keeping our students safe. And then for those families that really need to stay in distance learning for whichever reasons it may be, for safety, because of people in the home, because of the safety of the child, there's lots of different reasons. We understand that. We would want to be able to offer a virtual learning academy that holds that high rigorous standard, that it's a real virtual academy that is focusing on distance learning. And then those students would stay with those teachers. And then we'd have to look at sort of how we transition everybody back. And that's sort of some of the difficulty as we look at our staffing and what's best for not only our students, but also our staff. And that's not just our teachers, but also all of our support staff, our clerical staff, our instructional aides, our custodians. We have to make sure that we are properly staffed to be able to help offer all of these options to our families. And so with that, we thank you very much for being here. We're happy to spend the rest of the evening answering questions. We know that there are a lot of questions, and we know a lot of people are undecided and not quite ready to make a decision. And so you might just be here to hear information, and we understand that. And the information will continue to come forward. We are going to be working with our staff to survey staff to see how many of our staff members are able and willing to work during the summer. You know, we need to take care of our staff, and the wellness of our staff matters a great deal to us. They need time off, and they need to be able to sort of refresh as well. So we want to coordinate as much as we can with everyone to help our students regain whatever they've lost through this pandemic and start next year feeling great and excited and ready to go. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy and Scott to help direct us with some of our question and answer session.
Okay, many of our questions have been answered in the Q&A, but there are a few that need to be addressed by our panel because they were not part of our presentation. So the first question is, will there be ELP full-time childcare for working parents during the summer or just academic programming?
That's a great question. That is definitely our hope, to be able to do very similarly to what we've done this year, to offer ELP to supplement whatever our students are doing. If our students come in the morning for intervention learning, intervention classes, then be able to offer that ELP program in the afternoon. That would go back to our sort of typical ELP programming, where there would be a cost involved. And of course, there would be some limitations on what students would be able to do. Field trips and some of the really fun stuff they do in ELP would probably be limited to a degree, but we would get back to normal as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. For the summer opportunities, is this according to the student's school year for the current 2021 school year or upcoming 21-22 school year?
That's a great question. I'll start with it. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gomez regarding the STEP part. So that's a really great question. It is an expansion of our 2021 school year. So our summer school program is to help, for lack of a better term, mitigate the loss. What happened through this pandemic? How can we get those students back up to speed with reading and math? And some of those, especially when we look at our littles, as we call them, our second and third graders, they're on the cusp of that, learning those really great new skills. And it's hard to do in a distance learning setting. So being able to really focus on that intervention period to end the year on a stronger note, and same with our high school students as we look to recover some of the credits that maybe were not gained, right? For students that maybe got a D or an F grade in a class because the distance learning just wasn't working for them, especially with that subject matter. So be able to fix that. And then we take a little break, as you notice, in July, and then we'll come back. And I'll turn that over to Dr. Gomez to talk a little bit more about how we get set up for next year.
Thank you. I'm sorry. And this was, we're looking at a question regarding STEP, correct?
Yeah, just sort of talking about, is this summer program really about this last year we're finishing, or is it about going forward? And it's really about both. So I sort of answered, how we're sort of ending the year and then how we transition.
Right. So looking at the STEP, we really want to look at our incoming students and our incoming grades to get them acclimated. So when we're looking at our TKK and 1, that's going to be grade levels for the 21-22 school year. I have to think about the school year. So that would be what grade will your child be in the fall? And so that STEP program is geared to TKK and 1 for the 21-22 school year. So if your child is currently a kindergartner, then they would qualify for that. But if your child is currently a first grader, then they wouldn't necessarily be in the STEP program.
So the next question is about the summer transitional program and juniors who have not had their first full freshman year. Will they be included in the transitional program?
I'm trying to remember. So they were a freshman last year, and then they're a sophomore this year, right?
No,
they're going into junior. So they'd be starting as a junior. The Link Crew program is going to focus more probably on the 9th and 10th graders specifically, but that doesn't mean that our 11th graders aren't going to have that time on campus. There was a little asterisk in the presentation that we didn't touch on, but what we are hoping is through our ASB and other groups on campus, we would have activities that are geared just to our 11th graders and just to our incoming seniors, to build that school pride again, to build that feeling great on campus sort of feeling and getting used to everything. So in addition to credit recovery classes that'll be offered for every grade level at high school, 9 through 12, there would be fun activities for our juniors and seniors as well. They just probably wouldn't be sponsored by our Link Crew, but they would still be happening on our campus.
Thank you. The next question, where will the Google form of summer transition post?
Great question. I'm not sure if that is for special education Google form that she was talking about.
I'm assuming they're referring to the Google form for ESY, which I spoke about. That will be sent directly. It will be emailed to parents of students who qualify.
But that does touch on a really good question that many people are going to have. How will you sign up for summer school? Right now, we're in the planning stages, but as we usually do, we will push out also a Google form through Parent Square, and we will also work with the school sites to be able to help sign you up that way. And a lot of that will be in collaboration with your teacher as well. I know a lot of parents maybe feel like their student really are struggling and needs to get in there, and it may be that the teacher says, you know, the student really did master all the skills, and so this might not be the right program for them as we look to really hone in and focus on those intervention type strategies in the summer program.
Thank you. Will you have another webinar before school ends?
That would probably come to me. We do try to schedule the webinars when we need information from families or when we're getting some questions from families. And so we just need to answer the bulk of questions for all families. And so we probably will do one prior to the summer starting. And then we will do webinars in the summer in preparation for the fall to converse with parents and make sure that we answer their questions that they have in mind.
I just want to jump in real quick. I've seen a couple of questions. I'm trying to answer them. Summer school will be free. So all of our academic offerings for summer school, there is not going to be a cost for our academic offerings. So please know that that's our summer program through Temple City Unified School District will be free.
And then just to touch on that, there might be a little bit of confusion. Our Temple City Schools Foundation is offering several courses that really deal with enrichment and students taking original credit. So for example, if there are students out there that really want to get ahead and take a class that so they don't have to take it next year, we're not able to offer that. But our Schools Foundation is focusing on that, definitely in all of the history subjects that are offered through high school this year. They'll have many more next summer and summers to come, but that's one of their focuses. And then I know that they've pushed out a lot of information regarding all the wonderful enrichment courses that they're offering for all grade levels.
Can you shed a little bit of light on how kindergarten will potentially look next year?
Are we looking at schedule? Are we looking at programmatic? If I could have a little bit more information, maybe if the parent who's asking the question could type a follow-up question in terms of what we're looking at.
Thank you. We'll go on while we wait for that extra
Sure.
information.
And I'll look for the parent's name so I can follow him in the chat.
Thank you. When will we have more details on the Distance Academy options in fall?
That's a great question. We are hoping to be able to push out more information about that, certainly before the school year ends. So we know that there are some families who have been very, very clear that they will not be returning for in-person. So we do want you to know we will have an option for you. To find out all the details, it's going to take us some planning time, and we want to make sure we get that put together well. So I would say probably by late May, we'll be able to tell you what exactly that will look like. But we will be asking all of our families to sign up, and then there will be a commitment on our family's part to make sure that what they're choosing, they're willing to stay in that session, maybe for the first trimester, if it's elementary, or first quarter, or first semester, depending on what grade level, just so that we can staff appropriately.
Clarifying question, the class has not been defined for TC. The classes have not been defined yet for TCUSD's summer school, correct?
Correct. We have not completely defined them. We are planning to have ELA and math intervention courses at all level. If we're talking specifically about high school, we're hoping to offer all of the core subjects for credit recovery. But for sure, all of the grade levels will have an ELA and math component. Could there be other components? Perhaps.
How far in advance will we know the final decision for fall? We'd like to plan in advance if there will be no 100% in-person option from 8 to 2 p.m. or whatever the regular school day is.
Well, nobody wants to say it out loud, because every time something gets said out loud, something changes with our lovely pandemic. So I don't want to be blamed for this, but our plan is to be in full in-person sessions next year and have that option Monday through Friday as if we're in a normal school year as much as we can be. There will be precautions to take. People will be wearing masks. There will be some things that will have to be altered, but having a full school day on our campuses is our number one priority. And we have every intention of doing that, but We just want to not have anything else happen to change again. But again, I do want to keep reiterating, we know there's a small percentage of our families, maybe 20% still, that really do want that distance learning. Please know that we will have a very viable, good option for you as well.
This is a two-part question. Will teachers be recommending who should be going to the summer classes, and are they mandatory?
That's a great question. They are not mandatory. They may be highly, highly encouraged just so that we can help support students. But certainly if families are not able to attend summer sessions, then they would not need to attend the summer session. Teachers will be recommending students for summer sessions, absolutely. And that will be done in partnership with parents. There'll be some conversation and discussion so that if parents really want the student to come to summer, the teacher can sort of help guide the parent to say that that is a good option or perhaps not the right option for that student.
Thank you. Many families are planning summer vacations and work schedules. I know summer plans are tentative, but when do you anticipate having a schedule of dates and times available?
That's a great question. The dates that we put into our presentation tonight, which we will push out again tomorrow, are, I would say, rather firm. That is our plan. It's very usual, normal time for us to offer summer. We also want to make sure we can maximize our staffing options. So if we get to a point where we see that, ooh, maybe we need to adjust a couple days here, or maybe there's some other options, then we want to be able to have that flexibility. So to commit completely to a summer school program as far as the dates and times, it will probably be in the next couple of weeks. But right now we are looking at those times, which are June 14th through, I think it was July 15th for all programs, except for the high school would then go the next week of July 22nd. And those would be morning sessions, roughly between 8 or 8:30 to 11:30, 12 o'clock, somewhere around those areas.
Will band camp and Link Crew be held in person or virtually? And thank you.
Such a great question. Link Crew. So those are great questions that I don't think we can answer just quite yet. I know that Link Crew does have meeting times and certain, like a camp that they do. We want to try to offer as many of those activities as we can. We have to follow guidelines. If the guidelines allow that to happen, then we certainly want to be able to allow those things to happen, but we don't have a decision on those yet. As far as band camp goes, and as far as any of the band and those still the wind instruments, we're still waiting for better guidance from Department of Health when it comes to those things. We know we have so many students in our district that really want to get back to playing their instruments, being together, making that beautiful music that we all love to hear. So we really want to get those programs back up and running in person as soon as we possibly can.
Related to summer school, will there be in-person, as in not on Zoom, courses?
Yes.
Can students do the academy at home and still participate in school clubs, sport, band, guard, musical, etc.?
That's a really great question and something that we have to look into also. I don't know if Dr. Fricker, if you want to talk on it a little bit. There's ed code and certain things that will govern us. So we just have to see what the transition, this year when we started, there was legislation to help us with that distance learning and sort of alleviate some of that. So I don't know that a lot of that has been put out yet for next year. So
Not that I've seen, but we do keep monitoring that. And there are a lot of questions that go up to the state with regard to that. So as soon as we get those answers, we will pass them along to our families.
Thank you. If parents choose to have their child or children go in person, will there be more classrooms available, or will there still be an average of 23 to 28 students per classroom?
Does anybody want to? So again, we're looking at the space and the distance. For summer specifically, we want to keep our classes as small as we possibly can, just for the betterment of learning for our kiddos, right? So when we're doing intervention and we're really trying to catch that learning loss where it may be individually for students, we want to keep those groups small so the teacher can be the most effective. When we look at next year, we want to return to a more normal environment, within that 3 feet space and what we can fit in the classrooms and what can be managed. Did I answer that question all the way? I don't.
And the state ratio is with the 3 foot, it's up to 30 students in a classroom. But again, that would really be determined classroom by classroom to see exactly how many students could fit in a classroom, keeping that 3 foot barrier, that 3-foot distancing.
Thank you. For incoming 7th graders, will they take summer school at their elementary school or at Oak?
So another great question and things to look at. I think right now, as we look at it, thinking of summer more of an expanded school year, it would really be to sort of focus on this year for summer, for that beginning part of summer, to really hone in on those skills. So a 6th grader getting ready to go to 7th grade, we'd want to have them be on their campus for 6th grade and sort of get and focus on those skills and make sure they feel really confident to get to 7th grade. But then as we look at the August program where we're talking about that transition, then they would then transition over to Oak, for example, and be a 7th grader.
So in theory, a student that's at one of those shouldering grades could potentially be attending 2 programs if schedules allow for it and parents are willing.
Good to know. Thank you. This is a question for students with an IEP. Will there be academic review during the summer for high school students with an IEP?
So for those students that qualify through the IEP process, there is SAI instruction in which they do targeted instruction based on the student gaps on their goals. So the answer to that is yes, but it's very targeted to the gap that they have seen based on the goals. But the student does need to qualify to go through the ESY process.
Thank you. When will we know a student will be invited to attend summer classes?
Great question. I was just typing one right now. I think our goal, again, would be similar to what we did with in-person. We would work to really sort of partner with those teachers to see who are these students that really need these sessions. There may be students that families are not able to come, and there may be students who maybe are sort of on that cusp and they just want to come, and we want to be able to invite them in. So as we look at this, we really want, because we know families are planning, we want to be able to get that information out as soon as possible. So we'd be hoping in the next 2 to 4 weeks to be able to designate that, especially as we're finishing up trimesters and transferring through the rest of the year.
Is the free summer school for all elementary students, or do they have to qualify?
I was just trying to type to that one. So that sort of goes along with what I was saying. So when we look at the intervention courses, because we'll have to look at what staffing we have available and what's really offered, we want to focus on those students that really are demonstrating that they weren't able to master some of the standards due to the pandemic. The distance learning wasn't allowing them to really grasp that learning. And so we might not be able to invite all students back because the focus for the summer really is on learning loss and interventions. For enrichment, for students that want enrichment, we have our Temple City Schools Foundations offering a number of classes for enrichment opportunities.
Do we know the start date for fall, the new school year?
Yes, August 25th.
Will all students that teachers recommend for summer school and programs be given a spot in summer school, or will it be first come, first served?
Great. Well,
Go ahead.
so our goal is always to be able to provide everybody that opportunity in that spot. But again, we also need to look at our staffing and our options in terms of that. So at this point, it's a little hard to say. Our goal would be to be able to afford that opportunity to everyone, but we also need to make sure that we have the staff. So once we have our staffing squared away, then we'll know in terms of our availability.
Can we have music classes for this summer?
I do know that the Temple City Schools Foundation, I believe, is offering a music program during the summer. So again, there are still strict guidelines for certain instruments, for singing, certain things that haven't necessarily been lifted. I don't know that they just haven't really been discussed as far as that we can really see. And so we're waiting for those to, like I said, to be able to offer that in person. But I know the Schools Foundation is offering that.
Here's a question that's come up a few times. What if I have already signed up my student for a summer program, but I'd like them to participate in the summer program that Temple City Unified is offering? Should I cancel now?
That's a great question. we don't want you to lose a space anywhere. And we want to be able to be sure that we can offer you what is best for your child. Go ahead, Dr. Gomez. I think I spoke a little bit before you did.
No, that's okay. And I was going to say, it's a hard question for us to answer. It's really one that, you would need to discuss with your child and with your family, not knowing what the other location or entity might be offering, not knowing what your child might need. It's a little hard because that's a very personal decision that you would need to make in terms of what your child needs. So it may be something that you might want to discuss in further detail with your child based on age, if your child's old enough to articulate, looking at what the other entity might be offering, looking at what we're offering, and then also, touching base with your child's teacher as well.
What technology updates should we be looking for? The district was forced into the 25th century and updated many tools, but will there be a streamlining and more training or a shift into summer of how we will use those tools?
That's a great question. We would like summer to rely a little bit less on technology for no simple reason other than we need to bring all those devices back in. We need to sanitize them, clean them, repair some of them. What we do re-imaging on them so that there are better options on those devices. So there will be technology offered during the summer, but less than what we had, so that when fall starts, it's more. And Canvas is here to stay. And so it's a tool that our teachers and parents can continue to use to support the students and communicate, as well as Parent Square. So as we look at technology, there is a streamlining going in. I love the question because that's exactly what happened is we really rushed to get out there. We will remain one-to-one as a district, meaning every student in TCUSD will be issued a device. And then there'll be lots of opportunities within that of what we're able to do for next year.
Just to confirm, it will be 30 students with 3 feet separating them?
Depends on the space of the room.
The only guideline is that 3 feet of spacing, and then the ratio set forth by the state and the Department of Public Health is 1:30. You can put up to 30, but we will not put 30 if space isn't allowed.
If there is a student in the class that tests positive, does everyone in the class need to be tested? And does the school notify all of the parents in the class if it happens?
So if a student tests positive, parents within the classroom would be notified that there was a positive case. However, only students that would have met the criteria in terms of needing to quarantine would be told that they'd need to quarantine, and they would be contacted directly. Everybody else would just receive a generic notification letting you know that there had been a positive case, whether it was in the classroom or at the school site.
Will the district be looking at any type of standardized testing to understand the impact of distance learning this year?
So we will be proceeding with our iReady testing. And so iReady is aligned to our California state standards. And we do provide a diagnostic assessment for that 3 times a year, where we are able to identify and look at trends that we've explored. We've also been able to identify potential learning loss across grade levels because we have been using iReady for a number of years. So we have multiple year trend data that we can analyze based on cohorts, based on individual grade levels. We can disaggregate that data as well. So we have all of that information to help guide a lot of the decisions that we're making.
Are there any guidelines for incoming kindergarten students to attend the program, the summer program?
We would provide that information after registration. Once our classes are formed, we would share the information so that they could participate and join us in the STEP program. Absolutely.
If a student gets COVID or a cold or flu, what will be the duration that they have to stay home? And a second follow-up question, will they be able to follow the classes on live stream in their classroom so they don't lose instructional time?
So there's a couple of things with that. So it's hard to say because things change rapidly. So I know there's a few questions on, recess and lunch and what things will look like in the fall. right now, it's hard to say. We do not know because if things change rapidly. I think it was just last week that we still had to quarantine if you traveled in LA County, and then literally overnight, it was all of a sudden, no, you no longer have to quarantine if you've hit the 14-day mark past your second vaccine dosage. So at this point, it is very hard to say what fall would look like, and also what timelines would be like in terms of exposure, in terms of cold and flu symptoms, in terms of being sick, things like that. When it comes to looking at whether a student will be in person versus distance learning, we will need parents to make a commitment for that, because we are not currently looking at offering any type of a hybrid. So the question in terms of would a student be able to follow if they're homesick now, and would they be able to follow a live stream version of the class? Our classes, we're not planning to do a hybrid model, so we're not planning to have any type of live stream. And so it's not going to be a model where you can ebb and flow in between a virtual session versus an in-person. We will be asking parents to make a commitment, whether they are looking to attend in person or whether they may not feel comfortable and would prefer to do a virtual setting. But it won't be something that you'll be able to change based on the week or based on the month or based on even case rate. We will be asking for a commitment just because of staffing. We may not necessarily have the staffing if we do not plan appropriately for it.
And just to add to that, with our resources we gained this year, Canvas can really help with those types of things. When we look at a student that might need to be out for a 10-day quarantine, but they're an in-person student, a teacher is really going to be able to work with that student via Canvas, not necessarily live streaming while they're in class, but there's so much that can be done just as far as communicating and sending work back and forth and making it a little bit easier for the student to not feel disconnected from the class.
Is it okay that students do not attend the whole month of the summer program? For example, can they only attend the first 2 weeks of the summer program?
Depending on which summer program we're talking about, I think that would be a possibility. The only concern would be if that student was taking a seat from somebody and then it was sort of not allowing other students that wanted to get into that summer program. For high school, that would absolutely not work, unfortunately, because there is a requirement for attendance in the high school summer school classes because they do go on the transcripts and we are responsible for those mandates.
Will you be sending a packet for the summer school enrollment or instructional learning enrollment?
Everything will be done online, very similarly to how we enrolled in our in-person sessions and some of the other stuff that we've done. So it'll all be pushed through a Google form through our Parent Square app and program.
If 80% of students decide to go back in person, what will recess time look like?
Again, it's hard to say right now. We don't know what those guidelines will be, but we can assure you we will follow all LA County Department of Public Health guidelines. LA County does tend to err a bit more on the side of caution, and so they do tend to be a bit stricter than CDC, although they are trying to align themselves with CDC and with the California Department of Public Health, but we will be following all of their guidelines.
What are the criteria for retaking the Algebra 2 class in credit recovery? What is the grade cutoff?
Read that again. That was for Oak, right?
For Algebra 2 at TCHS Summer School, what is the grade cutoff? For example, can a student have a B and take the credit recovery, or do they have to be at below a certain level?
No, credit recovery is typically always for those D and F grades because colleges won't recognize the D grade, or obviously an F grade is no credit. So those are what we would call our credit recovery courses. So we would be focused on the D and Fs.
When is fall registration?
Depending on the school site, it is typically those last 2 weeks in August. That's all done through our data confirmation. And again, that is hopefully something as we move to the next year, the registration back on campus, our kindergarten roundup, all those fun things we do in the beginning of the year that we weren't able to do, hopefully we'll take on a new light of transitioning back to those options.
Will parents be able to switch to a homeschool option for their students for the incoming fall school year?
And this sort of touches on what Dr. Gomez talked about. At some point, we will have a cutoff that says we need you to commit to a decision. If you sign up for online or virtual academy type thing, that would necessarily be for a certain amount of time that you would have to commit to that and wouldn't be able to transfer back and forth. And then same with in-person, you wouldn't be able to switch over to that distance learning session because we have counted our staff out and we would have to hold you to what you've committed to. So again, we want to push that out a little bit so that we can give everybody time. And I know people are worried, is there going to be a surge, these new variants, all of these things that are talked about. We want to make sure that, like I said, we're pretty sure of what is going to be happening as fall comes forward.
When are we able to open the school library?
As a former English teacher, that just makes me so happy that somebody wants to go to the library. So I think that's a really great question. And I think that's something we would definitely be hoping to be able to offer in the fall. I don't know that we would, there might be some opportunity in the summer. I'm not exactly sure what the requirements would be, but it sounds like we would be able to have some access to it during the summer.
Thank you. Will students returning to middle school and high school be moving from class to class as they normally would, or will they be more restricted in their movements?
We're hoping normal. I hate that word because I don't even know what that is anymore, but no, we would be hoping to have middle school very similarly to how we've had it, to be able to have them go period to period and get that transition time and learning how to handle that for high school. So we are hoping our in-person sessions resemble a pre-COVID model as much as possible.
Combining two questions together, will summer school options for elementary be at the home school? For example, my students at Emperor, but will they have to go for Cloverly? And then there's a second question about teachers. Will the teachers be native to the school, or will they be teachers potentially from other schools?
That's a great question, and one that we can't completely answer. The plan would be that you would attend your actual school. So if you were at Longden this year, you would go to Longden and hopefully you would have a Longden teacher. We can't commit to that, as I said, because we need to give our staff the chance to sort of figure out what they want to do for summer and what staff is available to be able to help us with our summer options. So if we have several students and it makes sense to host them at one or two sites rather than open up all sites, we would have to sort of exercise that option. So that's certainly not what we're looking to do. It's just a matter of what we can do. And we won't know that for probably another 2 to 4 weeks.
For students that are entering into the 8th grade next fall, these students have left elementary school and are basically missed most of 6th grade and all of 7th grade. What are the plans to help students integrate and acclimate academically, emotionally, and developmentally?
So that would be part of the program that we're looking to offer. So students, obviously, we want to provide them that the portion at the beginning of the summer that would help with some of that reading learning loss, math learning loss, and then obviously social emotional support. But then at the shouldering at the end of the summer, beginning of the school year, affording them that opportunity where they are with their peers within the same grade level at their school site, and affording them 1 week where it's just them building that camaraderie, building that community with their peers, their school site, with their teachers. And then obviously social emotional is going to be at the forefront of everything that we do next year, because we do recognize that this was a very trying year for everyone.
Many of the questions are repeats, so I think. Oh, are there any classroom photographs showing how the room settings will be, showing the social distancing, etc.?
That's a great question, and that was asked the last time. And we do have some photographs that we can push out to just show where we are now. We are still following the 6-foot guidance, even though we are not required to. It's something that we were committed to, and we have kept that with our in-person sessions. But absolutely, as we start the new year and we look at what a classroom is going to look like and what does 3 feet really look like in a classroom, we can definitely push out those pictures site by site so everybody comes back on campus feeling comfortable and understanding what is being offered.
Can you speak to promotions for 6th grade, 8th grade, as well as high school graduation?
Well, with regard to promotion and graduation, we are committed to having some form of in-person promotion graduation. The guidelines that have come out from the Department of Public Health and also the LA County County of Ed, they are recommending that we have a reduced number of patrons to watch the programs, and also that we have it at one location or minimize the locations in order to minimize, contamination and sanitation. So with those guidelines, we are now planning our graduation meetings so that we can put those plans in place for each of the promoting schools and for the high school graduation. But we are committed to having something in person. All the restrictions must apply, all the guidelines must apply, and that planning is currently underway. And the information that we glean from those meetings coming up, we will post out to our families as soon as possible.
Is it possible to hold the Temple City High School AP exams in person?
There is a possibility to do in-person testing. You would need to reach out to the high school.
Are 100 volunteer hours still required for high school graduation?
No, those,
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry, no, it's okay.
Well, no, that was that requirement was decreased, I believe, last year in May, if I'm not mistaken.
For the upper grades, 7th through 12th, when they are moving classes, how will the sanitation between classes occur?
Say that again, Amy.
Sanitation between students that need to switch classes, for example, in our secondary schools, Oak and the high school, how will they sanitize the desks, et cetera?
Again, we'll be following all of LA County Department of Public Health guidelines. We also, all of our school sites, our custodial staff, they do have, they're not foggers. What is the name? I'm blanking on the name. If somebody can help me with the name of those.
Aerosol sprayers.
Yes, but there's like an official name for them. I apologize. I'm blanking on the name, but it is some type of a sprayer. And so it has a very quick misting time and disinfecting time and then drying time. And so we would be able to use those in between and if we still needed to. But I anticipate that as we get closer to fall, they keep lightening up the restrictions. And so we are being very cautious right now because a lot of the restrictions have been lightened up fairly quickly as we've transitioned into the lesser tiers. And so we're monitoring that and seeing how other districts respond, seeing how if it leads to any type of a surge, any type of an increase. And I would anticipate that if all remains stable and actually trends continue to, rates continue to trend positively, then we will, the restrictions will be lifted even more. And so those will no longer be needed.
Thank you. Are there new volunteer hour requirements after the change?
Is it 50?
Yeah, I think though for this graduating year, right, it was taken down. So I think we did lower it down to 50, but it probably will be looked at as we move ahead, because for all of those students that haven't had the opportunity, we'll have to revisit that as well.
We have a couple of questions regarding grading specifically at the high school. Students that received passing grades because of the abrupt end of the school year, but students that would like to try to receive a higher grade by completing the actual coursework. Is that a possibility?
So is that question about last year's end?
Yes, so students that completed the last year's school year abruptly ending because of our COVID closures, and the students maybe received a C or whatever their grade was at the moment because they were not able to complete the coursework. Will they have another opportunity to do that coursework for a higher grade?
At this time, we're not able to do that. We did offer the credit, no credit option last year, and that is accepted by the CSUs and UC systems. And the colleges have also designated that they understand that that semester that ended in 2020 was unlike no other. And so there's a lot of leniency and forgiveness on some of those grades. So I think that depending on what the situation is there, the grade is, if it wasn't a D or an F, no, the student would not be able to retake that grade.
And then a follow-up question. So for example, Spanish 2 builds on Spanish 1. How will students make up for that difference of what they did not learn because of the closure?
That's a great question. So looking not just at the grade, but just being more worried about the skills and be ready for that class. That is something that we can definitely look at for at the high school if we're not doing it for credit recovery, but being able to do the learning loss mitigation aspect of it. It's something, if we have the room and our ability and the staffing to do it, we'd be really happy to be able to offer those students those options. We're also looking beyond the summer and looking for interventions built throughout the entire school year next year, knowing that students are going to struggle to come back to an in-person setting, take these classes that they were doing distance now in person, and being able to be ready for those. So we have a lot of plans that we are devising to help support and safety net our students as they move through the year next year.
Are there future plans for lunch pickup at La Rosa?
Great question. That will depend on what our offerings are during the summer and what makes the most sense. Certainly next year when we get back to as normal of a time as we can, but for summer we haven't, again, until we figure out what campuses we're going to be on, what our numbers will look like, we won't know for sure what our lunch offerings will be.
But if we're discussing for next year, then lunches would be offered at each of the school sites for our in-person instruction next year.
Is Temple City Unified doing COVID testing, weekly, monthly, random testing?
We currently have an affiliate testing partner that if staff or students wish to be tested, testing is not a mandate, so we can't mandate that. But if they wish to be tested, they are eligible to sign up and then make an appointment and then get a COVID test should they want one. All of our athletes who are indoor in in session, meaning that they are practicing indoors, those athletes are currently being tested, but that is the only requirement for testing of athletes at this time.
Does the district have options as to which virtual academy to purchase?
When we look at a virtual academy, we actually aren't looking to purchase anything, but to create and offer. We have a lot of amazing teachers that really love distance learning. They were able to really do some very cool things, and it really excited on how they were able to help students. So that we do have interested teachers in being able to help support that distance learning effort. And with our learning management system of Canvas and some of our other tools, we can offer a virtual academy in that same way. So that you would still have a live teacher that would be guiding you through. And depending on the age of the student and which classes they were taking, they may have multiple teachers, just like a high school class. They could just go from one period to the next. But it would be a bit different than what we're offering this year in the Distance Learning Center, and it would be a full day. It would be a full academic day.
Okay, thank you. It is my understanding that the SAT, ACT by the district, I'm sorry, my screen shifted. It is my understanding that the SAT, ACT is not going to be a minimum admission requirement. Is the district and or Temple City High School planning to assist the students in college admission in general?
One of our strongest areas, I believe, at the high school is our team of 6 counselors. Not many high schools have 6 counselors to help their students so that we're able to manage those caseloads. And our counselors work really, really hard to help support all of those students, not just with applying, but getting letters of recommendation, also weighing options and making sure that they have every option available to them. So absolutely, that is something that our counselors have been working on, as well as our College and Career Center and Ms. Sisson, who works and manages manages that. So we have a lot of options that we always try to help support our students with.
Thank you. My son is testing at the site provided by the district. However, we are not receiving our results within 48 hours. How will this work when games start next week?
Well, we can actually double check with the site that they are going and getting their COVID test through and make sure that those results do come in a timely fashion. So I will double check on that. And then if they are not, if the person who is typing in the question can reach out to our risk manager, that would be helpful. Her name is Mari Montgomery. And I can put her email in the chat so that they can reach out to her directly if this is not working. But we will check and make sure that that turnaround time is what it says it should be.
This is not a question, but a comment. In case you don't know, y'all did a great job for a crazy year that doesn't seem to end. Keep it up and hope the staff all hang in there and can de-stress along the way. Cheers. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I believe that is all of the questions that are in English.
Amber, have you seen these? Are we able to check these off?
Easy on typing. Let me check. 远程暑期课程. Okay, one question is a summer school is available for distance learning.
Depending on the age of the student, we will have a distance learning option. For the younger students, we may not be having a distance learning option. That's not something that we are looking to do at the moment, just because it doesn't seem to solve what we're looking to help with the learning loss.
Okay, from another question, she would like to know for ESY, is mean this school year, I mean this semester from June 14 to July 15 is still distance learning?
So we're going to have two options. One option is going to be fully in person, and one option is going to be full distant learning. However, for the parents that choose the distant learning options and want their related services, such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and such, if they want those in person, they can have that option as well.
Another question, summer program is it mandatory or is not mandatory? Can we stop at the middle of the class, like we just attended a half of the program?
So we answered that before. That's not something it depends on the age. If it's a high school student, that would not be a smart thing to do because that would cause the student to get a low grade or a no grade in the class. And then for our younger students, we want to make sure we're not taking seats up from other students who want to get into those classes. So, but we are able to work, as many accommodations as we can, if we can. That's what we're hoping to be able to do.
Okay, and there are other two questions, seem like just repeat. I will type the answer.
Okay.
Okay, where I have, right here. Oh, another one. For the high school, community hour, F, not enough for 50 hours. Can we still graduate or it have to be 50 hours?
The seniors this year have no requirement. That was waived for the seniors graduating this year.
Okay, and now there has no Chinese question. Okay, I'm gonna type in the answer.
Okay. We had originally been willing to stay for 2 hours, but we were able to clear those questions.
We do have a couple more.
Okay, and we'll take them.
Will there be water sports this summer? Water club, water sports, are there safe protective PPEs?
At this time, we have not decided on the water program this summer with the pool. The facility use will be going in front of the board, and those programs will be going in front of the board at a later date for consideration.
Will Temple City consider hosting the SAT?
That's a great question. At this time, there are no plans to do that. We have offered the PSAT to our students for the last few years before COVID. So we will maybe revisit those options, but right now there is no plan to offer the SAT on our campuses just as of yet, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future.
You actually have to apply with SAT to be a designated testing site. And so we have not submitted an application to do that.
Does the district have any resources for 16 and 17-year-olds that would like to receive their vaccines?
Great question.
As the vaccinations have opened up, there are a lot of different venues that are offering vaccinations. Through the City of Hope, they have the adults in conjunction with our campus vaccinated, and they're going through their second doses. At this time, I am not informed of additional vaccination clinics for the younger individuals.
A few of our parents have echoed that the virtual Q&A sessions are very helpful and great forums. Thank you. And thank you for all of the work the past year. My elementary kids are back last week and this week. It is hard for parents, 2 hours, 4 days a week in their schedule, but they are so happy and feel safe. Thank you again. In the current hybrid program, if a teacher is absent for any reason, is the entire class day canceled, morning and virtual, or is a substitute teacher invited?
What was the first part of it? I missed the first part.
If the teacher is absent, will they miss the virtual and the in-person, or will a substitute be provided?
Talking about right now, right?
Yes.
So what we've been doing, a lot of our teachers have partnered up with their grade level teams went for the distance learning part. So if a second grade teacher's out, the other second grade teacher can maybe take on some of those kiddos during the distance learning session. And then for the in-person, we do have substitute teachers floating around on campus that are able to fill in when there's an emergency and a teacher's not able to be there. So there should never be a time that our students are without a teacher.
Thank you for your cautious approach this year in keeping our students and staff safe. It's been a difficult year, but TCUSD students are still thriving. Kaiser is offering Pfizer vaccinations through their call centers for 16-year-olds. So that is helpful for our parent that asked about the 16 and 17-year-olds. Kaiser members can schedule online through the call centers.
Great.
Is there a math assessment for a 6th grader to take, as in previous years, to go into advanced leveled math in 7th grade?
Yes, I know that we did do that last year as well. And I know there are plans for this year as well. And there'll be more information being pushed out from Oak Avenue about how to take that, how to sign up for that assessment and take that test.
Lots of comments that Kaiser and other places are offering the vaccine. And the Department of Public Health is allowing immediate family members to attend indoor sports. Is that something you can approve?
Okay, as patrons, right? Am I as observers?
I think so, yeah.
There are limitations for indoor, and yes, it is regulated. It is regulated down to people within the same household.
Will TCUSD be partnering with a community college to offer college credit on the high school campus?
Can you repeat that? I'm so sorry. Partnering with PCC for what?
Or another university for college credit?
Yes, we are working with options for the high school to be able to offer PCC classes on our campus. We had been looking at working with them to do those things. And again, with the crazy year that we have, it's hard to get that all figured out. So we are hoping to be able to do that. If not for this next school year or this first semester, maybe by the second semester, we'll be able to do that.
Thank you for all of your kind comments about tireless work, the input, request, and responsiveness. Thank you all for that. We're getting many of those.
Okay.
So a clarification about the parents attending the sports. Are parents allowed to attend high school indoor sports?
We can work with the high school athletic director to get information out to families that follow the Department of Public Health guidelines for observers and the requirements for those observers.
And I see there's another question about making sure that we're not purchasing accredited virtual academy. We don't need to purchase accredited virtual academy because we are an accredited institution. And so we're able to take that option into a virtual academy. Many districts around do have a thriving virtual academy that we are looking to build and expand, not just because of COVID, but beyond, because there are a lot of students that may need to take 1 or 2 classes perhaps at a virtual academy and then come on campus for another 4 classes. Things like that we want to be able to offer our families in the future are things that we're really pointed towards. We're trying not to make decisions just because of COVID, but to get us through and beyond COVID.
And then are we offering independent study for the school year?
So independent study that we offer through our Temple City alternative school or our independent study program, there will still be that option, but we'd like to morph that into like our virtual academy as well. So we'll be re-looking at just what we offer at the Learning Center versus that and independent study options, and then a full virtual academy that, like I said, will be here beyond COVID.
241 questions asked and answered. Our chat is clear.
Yay, good job, Ms. Gerling.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate the comments, the feedback, and the questions. And as always, please make sure you complete the survey.
So we will push our survey back out tomorrow, just as a reminder to everyone, along with the video of this session and the PowerPoint that we presented. Please, as always, remember the TCUSD help desk at tcusd.net is a great place to start. If you have any questions specific to your school site, always include your school site. You can do emperor@tcusd.net, longden@tcusd.net. You get the gist of it. So your school is always able to answer those questions for you. Again, we thank you all very much for being here. This won't be the last you see of us. This little roadshow will continue and we'll be back with more information. But your feedback and input is very, very helpful. Please do the surveys and help collaborate with your neighbors and your friends, and they're all part of our community to do those surveys so we can get as much feedback as possible.
Have a good night. Go Lakers.
I was just going to say, go Lakers. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.